Don't you dare come back, Baldy. As I returned home exhausted from work, merciless words and my daughter's school bag were hurled at me. You're not needed. You're not a father. Don't come back home. When you come back, the house feels darker. And don't you dare show up at the parent-teacher day. It would be so embarrassing if people found out you're my dad. My daughter Cindy was in the living room hurling these words at me as I stood in the hallway by the entrance. From the living room where she was, I could see the kitchen where my wife Susan was. Cindy could see what expression Susan was making. I couldn't. Susan said nothing to the abusive words from our daughter. She just silently continued with whatever she was doing in the kitchen. I held back, saying anything now would only add fuel to the fire. Can't you just not come back? You're useless, not even making enough money. It was Susan who first hurled such abuse. Having seen that, Cindy started to do the same to me. She wears her uniform skirt so short it almost reveals her underwear and dyes her long hair to a blondish brown. She wears large contact lenses to make her eyes appear bigger, false eyelashes, and makeup that glitter in a blind eye. The clothes Cindy leaves lying around are too flashy for a student, resembling those of a nightclub worker. She hardly attends school and seems to roam the downtown areas instead. I've warned her numerous times, not minding the arguments it causes, but Susan has never once reprimanded her. I recently realized that Susan has been buying Cindy makeup and flashy clothes just because she asked for them. She has been spoiling Cindy, confusing being a kind mother with being an ineffective parent. How did it come to this? My dream was to have a family filled with smiles, a treasure for a lifetime. I didn't expect a baseball team-sized family, but I dreamt of playing catch in the yard with a son and buying a wedding gown for a daughter to keep as a bridal gift. I bought a house with a yard for this dream family and gritted my teeth at work every day to pay the mortgage. I was all about baseball in my school days and never really studied. Surviving in the world of an office worker, chasing numbers every day, was not going to be easy without extraordinary effort. I had never even used a computer before, so I gave up my weekends and, swallowing my pride, attended a computer class for beginners. Most of my allowance went to drinks with my boss. It was never enjoyable, just listening to sermons over drinks, all to get on the boss's good side, climb the corporate ladder, survive in the company, protect my family, and realize my dreams. It's not something I can proudly boast about, but I was skilled at ingratiating myself with seniors during gatherings and securing their help to navigate the corporate environment more easily. This was because I had become accustomed to gouging the moods of my seniors back in my baseball club days during school. My allowance used to be $500 a month, but it was cut down for trivial reasons, and now it's just $30. The reasons for my allowance being cut weren't significant. It was for things like breaking a dish while washing or forgetting to buy the milk I was asked to get on my way home. Unable to engage in internal sales to win over my boss, I had to compete on merit with colleagues who had studied properly in college. But I couldn't give up. It was all to afford a spacious house with a yard, to spare Susan the hardships I went through, and to let her focus on raising our children. Upon graduating from college, I joined a company that sells and maintains office computers, telephones, fax machines, and internet connections. Our company has branches nationwide. I was assigned to a regional city in the New York area. I drove around unfamiliar lands in a company car from morning till night. Susan, who was new layout at the time, followed me as the team assistant of the baseball team. Susan was quite popular. She wasn't a stunning beauty, but her cheerful and graceful demeanor often got her compared to famous TV anchors or magazine models. She was my pride and joy as a girlfriend and then as my wife. Back then, I was truly happy. But what about now? It feels like I'm trapped in a bad dream. Don't ever come back, Ubaldi. Who could have imagined that such harsh words would come from Susan, who was so adorable 20 years ago? Now our daughter Cindy is following in Susan's footsteps, hurling abuse and vitriol my way. They team up to splurge on clothes and bags, which is just unbearable. Susan and Cindy have become a codependent mother-daughter duo, spoiling each other rotten. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I'm only 35 years old, yet I am indeed 35. My hairline has receded, my forehead widened, my hair has lost its thickness, and wrinkles have appeared on my face. My belly has started to sag. The body I had and honed through sports is now a thing of the past. With age, I've keenly felt the decline of my physical capabilities. The ace pitcher of the baseball team that I once was is no more. Yet, I refuse to give up. Being tired and berated every day can't be all there is to my life. After all, Susan and I once vowed eternal love for each other, and isn't it pitiful for Cindy to grow up without proper guidance? As a father, it's my duty to wake them up and show them the right path. If I don't give up and produce results at work, maybe Susan and Cindy will have a change of heart. Until that day comes, I've resolved to keep working hard. Without being able to relax at home and still tired, I faced another morning. Ideally, home is where one relaxes and recovers from fatigue, but I found more relaxation at work these days. I've been with the same company since graduating from college. Now in my 10th year, I've been fortunate to have trustworthy colleagues and seniors I respect. While we're rivals, there's mutual respect among us. The sales department for communication devices had a strong athletic vibe, with everyone having been involved in some sport during their student days. For some reason, many of the male salesmen came from homes where the wives held significant sway. Despite each of us carrying our own burdens, it was a good workplace where we felt like comrades. There was a source of comfort there too. Her name was Ellie. "Good morning, Ellie," the sales support lady who handled the accounts I brought in said. With her glasses, she seemed like a calm and gentle woman at first glance. In her late 20s, she joined last year. Initially, I was concerned about her being new to employment due to some circumstances, but those concerns weren't unfounded. She never made a mistake in processing the accounts I brought in, and despite her gentle demeanor, she was quick in handling post-order procedures. Thanks to Ellie, I could always deliver smoothly to clients. Lately, she even started creating proposal materials I could use during client presentations in her spare time. Bringing brochures and estimates to clients is a given, but having proposal documents tailored to the client's needs based on the information gathered during meetings leaves a lasting impression. It's enough to outdo our competitors. Tom, great work. How did today's appointments for future acquisitions go? Ellie, you too. Today, I got an appointment with this client, I replied. It had become a routine for me to report to Ellie the details of the day's events and the appointments I secured with clients after work. Gradually, I found myself looking forward to these moments. When I returned to the office, Ellie greeted me with a smile. Today's client was Johnson Trading, a well-established company, right? How did it go? I started to report on my day. I had even spent time during work thinking about how to make my story interesting and amusing for her. I met with President Johnson. He's a stern old man who shouts no sales calls whenever work comes up, but he seems to have a soft spot for his grandchild. He spent the whole time talking about his grandchild and showed me a ton of photos on his computer. He has so many videos stored that his computer has become incredibly slow, so I suggested he stop storing them on his computer and start using the cloud for his photos and videos. He then agreed to an appointment for a future proposal. Ellie always had a great reaction to my stories. Wow, you've had a follow-up appointment from talking about his grandchild's photos. And you even proposed using the cloud to someone as old school and stubborn as President Johnson. That's amazing. I'll make sure to create a proposal document that's easy for the elderly to understand and that even a stubborn old man would appreciate. Normally, creating proposal documents would be a hassle, but having Ellie happily take on this task was soothing for me. It would be even better if it led to a successful deal. Achievements made alone are great, but accomplishments achieved as a team with the effort of two people hold many times more value. As far as I know, such teams bring more luck to the company. Despite everything, I might just be lucky. How dare you show your face here, you Baldy? Don't act like a father when you can't even earn, Baldy. No matter what insults await me at home, I will not give up. As long as I have a place at the company and a family I swore to protect, I must never give up. That day, what awaited me upon returning home was an even more intense barrage of insults from Susan and Cindy, and it was no wonder. Today marked the end of the fiscal year, and my branch had barely managed to stay in the black, with most of the team failing to meet their quotas. As a result, unfortunately, our bonuses were cut to a third. Thankfully, with Ellie's help, I had met my quota, but from the management's perspective, it was a collective responsibility. My efforts slyly went unrewarded. This year, I suffered the same fate as the rest of the team with a uniform bonus cut. I was certainly afraid of Susan and Cindy, who were furiously berating me. I'm not to blame. It was the others who performed poorly. Ugly words of shifting the blame onto my colleagues were about to escape my lips. I almost said it, but then it crossed my mind that such behavior is inexcusable. My teammates might be a bit foolish, but they are sincere people. Even if they are not performing well now, there might come a time when I could help them. I couldn't bring myself to blame them, even if they weren't there to hear it. You've been out all day, haven't you? You smell of sweat. Could you not come near the living room anymore? I don't have my own room. If I'm banned from the living room, where am I supposed to go? I heard something. My chair, newspapers, and even my cell phone charger were thrown into the hallway. It was Cindy who had thrown them from the living room into the hallway. A worthless, stinky old man with no warnings. Don't you ever pretend to be a father again. Susan didn't stop her. Instead, she peeked from the kitchen and said, "If your only skill is earning money and you can't even do that, you're less than a person, less than an ADM." Unlike Cindy, who was venting her anger, Susan had a cold smile. That smile was twisted and ugly, reflecting the warped nature of Susan's inner self. Susan, she used to be so adorable, so cheerful and popular with everyone. Has 20 years changed her so much? I sat alone on a chair in the hallway, too exhausted to move. I was hungry, but of course there was no meal forthcoming. I clenched my teeth and held back the tears. Yet I have to work tomorrow. I have to go to the company. With the company in a tight spot, if I were unable to work, our branch would surely fall into the red. I had to somehow take a bath, cleanse myself, and get some sleep, or I wouldn't be able to work the next day. Meanwhile, in the living room, Susan and Cindy were laughing out loud while watching a comedy show. I remembered seeing them post a selfie on social media yesterday with a hashtag best friend's parent-child. Who would imagine that behind that best friend's parent-child duo, there was a father being ousted to the hallway? Dragging my exhausted body, I managed to take a bath, then collapsed onto the chair in the hallway. Out of habit, I checked my phone. On the screen, Susan and Cindy sparkled like beautifully edited actresses. How did it come to this? Gradually, sleepiness overcame my fatigue, and so I ended up greeting the morning on that chair in the hallway. The next morning, I woke up feeling anything but refreshed and zoned out at my desk for a while. Then a kind voice reached me. "Tom?" It had been hours since I'd spoken to anyone, so my voice was barely there. "Good morning, Tom." Ellie was waving her hand in front of me, trying to catch my attention. "Huh, Ellie, right? Sorry, good morning. What's wrong? Did something happen? You don't seem yourself. Usually you are here 30 minutes before start time and dash out for visits right at the bell, but it's already 9:30. Saying so, her glasses glinted. In them, my anxious face was reflected as if they were mirrors. Her eyes seemed to probe into my soul with a sharp glint. "Did something happen, Tom?" "I can't hide anything from you, can I, Ellie?" I slumped back into my desk chair. I tried to laugh it off, but she didn't join in. Her expression was dead serious. "Let's go for a drink." There was no escaping it. I'm sure. After work, we headed to a bar near the station. It was a charming, cozy place with a warm atmosphere centered around a counter. Ellie listened to me for a while, nodding, but when I told her about being berated by my wife and daughter and then sleeping in the hallway, she got angry on my behalf as if she were me. "What? They said that to you, and you slept in the hallway on a chair in this cold? That's just not right." With a thud, Ellie put her drink down on the counter. "Keep it down, Ellie. It's embarrassing, so please don't tell anyone." I said this as I sipped my drink and enjoyed the snacks. I was busy during lunch break, just nibbling on a convenience store snack in the sales car. I hadn't had a proper meal since yesterday, so the drink and snacks slowly seeped into my starving stomach. Moreover, having Ellie listen to me gradually loosened the tension in my heart. "No, I'm sorry, but that's emotional abuse. It's a valid reason for divorce." Emotional abuse from a woman to a man. That can't be. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. It's just the heartless attacking the kind-hearted. How did it come to this? She used to be so cheerful and vibrant. Did I do something to hurt Susan? I remembered how adorable Susan was when we first started dating, and I was about to tear up, so I quickly changed the subject. Old enough? You're too kind, Tom. Live your own life. Ellie slapped my arm with a sharp smack. Oh, hey, Ellie, that hurts. She put down her drink and looked at me with a serious expression. I'm sorry, but I just can't forgive it. After all, Tom, you work so hard every day for everyone. I want you to live your own life. This might sound sudden, and it's just a woman's intuition, but do you think your wife might be cheating on you? I was so taken aback by her sudden question that I choked on my drink. Hey, what are you suddenly suggesting? That's a bit much. My wife would never do something like that. Wasn't your wife a popular team assistant of the baseball team? Always well-liked? And she's still making an effort to maintain her beauty, just like in the past, right? Plus, she can't seem to help but show off on social media, and yet she disregards a serious husband like you. Not to mention her dependency on your daughter in shopping. It's endless. I'm sorry to say this about your wife, but from an outsider's perspective, she seems very lonely. Where do you think such a person would seek affection? Where do you think she'd satisfy her need for female validation? Ellie's gaze was intensely serious. I was at a loss for words. Well, that's... She pressed on. Does your wife go out late at night by herself? When she mentioned it, I did recall something. There were days when I came home to find no one there, assuming Susan and Cindy had gone out together. But at night, only Cindy would return alone. Alone, Susan would come back after I had fallen asleep, unnoticed by me. It might be presumptuous of me, but perhaps you should consider an investigation for infidelity. Maybe you're right. Acting on impulse, I immediately hired a detective agency near the office to investigate for infidelity. 2 weeks later, unfortunately, the investigation yielded results much more quickly and easily than expected. The results were conclusive. Guilty. Not only on the days I worked overtime, but even during weekdays, Susan was seen gallivanting with various men and heading to hotels. It seems she met these unknown men through a dating app. Susan was a woman who could only affirm her value by being desired by others. Her immature behavior suggested that her emotional development might have stopped in her 20s. This made her seem like a child woman. She might even be competing with her young and attractive daughter, Cindy. It might appear to be going well on the surface. Susan might be filled with jealousy, but it's hard to say for sure. I didn't want to know, I thought to myself. I failed to protect my family. I continued to go to work without taking any days off. I maintained a smile during work, but the moment I was alone in the sales car, I couldn't stop crying. Tears blurred my vision, making it dangerous to drive, so I discreetly parked in a convenience store lot and cried until there were no tears left. In the evening, when I returned to the office, Ellie greeted me with a smile again. There's no way she wouldn't notice my swollen eyelids and bloodshot eyes from my tears. However, she looked at me quietly and pretended not to notice. The next spring arrived. It was a sunny day with the cherry blossoms in full bloom. It was also the day of Cindy's high school graduation. As usual, Susan and Cindy ignored me. Dressed in an excessively flashy uniform, Cindy and Susan, in a pink suit, left for the graduation ceremony without me. I watched them go. I decided to graduate from this family. Goodbye, Cindy, Susan, my dear family. There's so much I want to say, but now it's okay. Thank you for everything up to now. I've decided to leave this family. You've been telling me to leave, so you probably won't stop me now. Take care. I'm going to live my own life. When was the last time we had a meal together as a family? Feeling a bit sentimental, I left several photos of Susan entering a hotel with a man on the living room table. Susan, having married right after graduating from university, had no work experience. There was no way she could support Cindy through college on her own, but they'd have to manage as a codependent mother-daughter duo. Later, I heard from an acquaintance at my former workplace that Cindy had dropped out of college and that she and Susan were living off part-time jobs. Their future must be uncertain and anxiety-inducing, but that was no longer my concern. Packing my few belongings into cardboard boxes to be shipped, I boarded a train bound for a new city. The sparsely populated train during a weekday afternoon was quite pleasant. I took a seat by a window with a beautiful view, opened a can of soda, and enjoyed a lunchbox. It was delicious. Cheers to me. The gods of fortune don't forsake those who work hard. Having achieved profitability on my own in a tough market, I was timely transferred to the headquarters in New York. The company even covered my moving expenses, and Ellie was coming along too. Our partnership remained strong at the New York headquarters. Freed from the shackles of Susan and Cindy, I was set to secure major contracts. After moving to New York, Ellie and I became good friends and developed a trusting relationship outside of work. While I took the lead at work with Ellie's support, in our private lives it was the opposite. Ellie led the way in everything from outings to living arrangements to dining, and I was always there to support her. Enjoying this dynamic, I hoped it would last forever and proposed to her. Next year, we're expecting a daughter. This time, I'm determined to create a